do a little intro, get you all gassed up, and then we'll get into it.
Cool, man.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of my podcast. I'm very excited about today's episode. We did not plan to match, but here we are looking festive for the season of Valentine's Day.
So festive.
Today's guest is Chad Wolf from Carolina Liar.
Howdy, howdy.
And I feel like, so you were on Ari Manis's podcast, but before that, you were on David Dobrik's podcast.
Yep.
So I feel like now I'm just your sloppy thirds in terms of podcasting.
I've lived on the road. This is what happens. This is the magic of it all.
But regardless, I'm very happy.
Sloppy thirds. I haven't heard that term in forever.
Sloppy thirds. Sloppy thirds. It just passed down.
I was like, that's one of those things back in the old days, like, oh my God, thinking about like that. Just that terminology, it was like at some point it just really went out the window. It never mattered anymore.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, this is just a good time for everybody.
Yeah.
Why are we putting any terminology on it?
That's very true. I know. It's also like, who cares what number it is? Like, there's no...
Oh, man, you can't get this like some old timer like me. You can't get clean. It'll never happen.
Yeah. But I'm so happy to have you on because when
Thanks for
Ari
having
told
me, dude. This is dope.
Yeah. When Ari told me that you were coming on his podcast, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, it brought back so many memories.
Really? For you?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, for me. I have two older sisters.
Okay.
They're 31 and I think like 33.
Oh, so they were right
So,
in. That was like
yes,
their
in
thing
the
and you
pocket.
were watching them.
Yeah, and so I never had like a childhood.
Oh, sure, because you had an older sibling.
I had older sisters.
Like
so I was
4 years or 8 years older?
7 and 5.
Yeah.
So I was
same,
watching what they were watching. I was listening to what they were listening to.
Yep.
And I feel like your story is so cool. And
Thanks.
it's one of those stories that like I'm glad has been reintroduced.
Me too.
Yeah.
Man, I'm very grateful.
Yeah. And I didn't want to do too much research because I feel like sometimes I do too much research and then I know everything and then I'm like, well, what's the point of asking a question?
Yeah, totally.
I already know all
this
the
is
stuff.
the point of the journey, right?
Yes.
Because you might, like, that's the fun thing is like, you never know. Like, I've never done these podcasts. This is all new. Like,
yeah.
It is only the third or fourth podcast that I've done.
Who's the
ever.
one that I'm missing?
I went to the Good Boys podcast.
Okay,
and
who's that?
They were the guys who's part of like the Views crew, part of David's like friends and family. And that's how I got into the David camp because I met Brett and we met at some Martin Garrix thing years ago. And then we met at another party and talked. And he's like, wait a second. That's your song. It's like, my buddy uses that song all the time in videos.
Yeah. I
was like, who's your friend? And he's like, it's this guy, it's David Dobrik. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, can I meet him, please, and just say thank you?
Yeah.
I don't need...
Because did you know that he was using your music in the videos?
No. I didn't know
crazy.
until like 2018 or 2019. That's when I started seeing real numbers start to change on like YouTube clips. And I had no clue. I had none. And then I started doing the research on it. And was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This guy is literally driving all of these young guys to this music.
Yeah.
It's got nothing. I have done nothing with promoting that music.
Yeah.
I stopped playing it. I got to the point where I was like, I'm just done.
Well, because that album, was it your first album?
Yeah.
It was released in what, 2008?
2008.
Yeah. So it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Years.
You haven't had to think about that for a long time.
No, at all.
And I also feel like your music was used so much, and maybe this is just my imagination, but when I was listening to it, I was like, I feel like this was in every TV show, like every CW show.
Every CW show we could get that
like
thing
the
in.
OC, like every show, commercials. It's one of those like feel-good songs that just gets you fucking amped.
It's there.
And there's so much emotion too where it's feel-good, but if you listen closely, you're like, do I feel good about this?
Yeah,
it's bringing back.
Really like it's
bringing back some feelings.
Real nostalgia thing. Like that kind of almost hurt. Somebody said it really good the other day. They're like, it's the It's the happiness agony complex. I think that's how she explained it. She's like, because you're so happy, but then you're happy for so long. It's kind of like holding a yoga pose. My friend Jill said this, and she's like, you hold a pose so long and you start to get the shakes, even though you know you're doing good for yourself and there's some joy in it, but there's still like, there's
a little bit of pain.
There's some pain.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that because it's like, I tried to go the super pop route after that record, and that's what I ended up shooting myself in the foot with.
Do you think so, though?
I think so. Totally, because it wasn't real. Like, and those songs were real.
And I guess there is... Did you go into a more pop route because is there this pressure after you have such a success to just kind of follow this structure?
You have to go that route. Yeah, because once... The way that the radio was structured, because we were a real radio band, like we got TV licensings, but it was radio that really did serviced us well, because we could go to communities and play and just build a real thing. But what happened was, once you go from real alternative radio to pop, generally pop alternative radio just can't bring you back. It just doesn't happen. You're not that band anymore. And so to try and go back to it, it's like, no, you got to try and write something that works on top 40.
But then I guess at the same time, it's like when you have such a successful first album, it's like, I feel like even if you were to do the same style or just like sticking to your roots, it still is very difficult after that.
It is, because you change. Your whole circumstances are different.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's why I'm writing a whole bunch of new stuff now, and went through a whole new process of burning everything down to the ground and rebuilding. And so these new songs are real gritty and like they feel good.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that stuff to lean on anymore. I don't have the record company budget, and I don't have the gear. It's not like I can go to a real studio and do like the same thing.
I feel like that's got to kind of be stressful, but also freeing, because you're kind of starting from where you started from the first time.
Yeah,
so you have that same emotion of like, I need this. I want this.
Yeah,
like,
it's that same, like, all of it has come back to being like, that was what that feeling was. And like hearing people say like, that song meant something to me.
Yeah.
And you feel it like, wait, it did mean something to me at the time. And then you have to kind of forget it, because it's like you gotta do better than that, or you just lose focus and you miss so much of like, wait, that's amazing that it even happened.
Yeah.
Like, to get to be somebody who gets to have a song that lasts and people hear it. It's like just some random stranger hears your music and it's like, that's a gift. That's all you ever wanted at one point.
Yeah.
That was be enough.
And there's also, I'm sure at the time you don't realize it, but now looking back at, that song and that album and just that time of music, like you're saying, it's so much about radio, and, it's cool to be able to be put in TV because so many more people are exposed to it.
Yeah.
But now, it doesn't, like, the radio doesn't have as strong of a hold at all.
No, it's pretty much gone. It's not gone, but it's definitely not the same sense of community, because that radio station could be programmed from here.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with what's happening locally in that city.
Yeah, and so many people are just trying to make hit songs for, like, TikToks and
Dude, that's so weird,
all of that.
Right? Like, these little quick, like, cool, kind of quirky hit songs.
Yeah. So does that at all kind of spark something in your brain where you're like, I hope one of these songs can have some sort of like catchiness?
No, actually now, since I've learned how to survive without having to have it, like I've been able to like, I didn't think that I could teach. I learned how to like be a teacher.
Yeah.
And all these other things. And some, I still songwriting, but I never really got a lot of placements with other artists and stuff like that. But I found other means to make a living and still stay in music. Not a super glamorous living that I did have, but I found a way to survive. And now I think because of that, I know I don't need a lot. I can live on bare minimum. Yeah. And then I can write things that actually matter. Like I can write a song about like, you know what, I like just the color of my shoelaces today, and that's fine. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like that's the art. Like and to be that free is fantastic.
Because I'm sure. So for people who don't know your story, and I feel like I don't know it well enough to try and elaborate, but I was reading your little Spotify biography, the little blurb, and I felt like I learned a lot from that.
That's good. Somebody wrote that thing, right?
Yeah.
It probably wasn't me.
It's so weird as a comedian. I didn't realize like I have to write my own biographies on so many things, and I'm like, this is so painful. Don't you feel terrible with that stuff? Yeah.
It's awful. It's like this narcissistic exercise. It's
you're like Allie's done really well for herself. myself. If you don't know about her yet, you're going to.
When you were in high school, did they make you write your own obituary? Was that like an exercise that everybody had to do?
Oh, we did something so dark. We did that program where it's like the drunk driving program.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you acted out in front of the whole school.
Yes.
Yeah.
But only a few get selected. Not everyone's a part of it. And I'm an attention seeker, so I was trying to be the main person that died.
I got in it too.
Yes.
There we
but
are.
I wasn't popular enough to be the main person who died. And I'm like, come on, guys.
I didn't get to die. They took me out on like a trauma ski or something.
You're just like an extra.
Yeah, I was basically just an extra.
And then I was, I think, the only person out of that program who ended up getting in a drunk driving accident. And I'm like, you should have cast me as the main person. Maybe I would have changed my ways. None of you guys have gotten any sort of drunk driving related incidents.
It worked for you guys.
Yeah, art became life or whatever the thing is. But we had to make our own little, what are those called? Like tombstone.
Really?
Yeah.
You had to make your own
and
tombstone?
my dad still has it. He sent me a photo on Halloween. He put it in front of the house. I'm like, this is so dark.
Wow, that is fantastically dark.
How did we get there?
Oh, we're talking about having to write your own bio.
Oh, yeah.
And I always go back to like the exercise of having to write my own obituary. And it's like, that's the only way when I started in this thing, like having to write that stuff, was like, just put it in that perspective. You go a little bit darker, and maybe that way you can be an observer rather than trying to just write about yourself because it's gross.
Oh, that's a good way of looking at it. It's very dark, but
Yeah, because then you can be real. Like, especially, I mean, you got a good sense of humor. You got like a good dark vein of humor in there, and it's like, you can dig in that space.
And I guess that also helps being like, what are the most important things that I'm doing? Like, I don't need this filler of like, she grew up in Long Beach.
No.
She went to prom with her friend Justice. Yeah,
those things don't matter. Like, you could boil it. It helps you really boil the things down that need to be set in stone.
Yeah, truly, literally. Yeah.
It's kind of a neat trick.
Have you ever thought about this? I don't understand. There's a lot of things that I don't know, and I'm happy to admit that.
Hey, man, it's the best way to live, right?
One of the things that baffles me, anytime I drive past a cemetery and there's so many tombstones next to each other,
right?
How are the bodies all just laying on top right next to each other? Those are close quarters.
Yeah, at some point, in some places they are. They actually bury the bodies on top.
Oh, Jesus.
I've seen that happen before. Like, where I grew up down south, certain times a year, if we got too much flooding, the bodies would pop up out of the ground. So the caskets would. And sometimes you'd be like, whoa, was more than one casket on that stone.
Which is illegal.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, because it's a real plot of land.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I guess that's probably why it's so expensive, is that you're literally putting down money for
a piece of land.
It's like a second mortgage.
Yeah.
It's your home, technically.
Isn't that just so greedy, though? When you think about it, like, I'm dead and I'm using
this
land
is mine.
still forever. That serves no purpose other than people to come and visit you, and then they're all going to die off and forget you anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the route of cremation, right? That's got to be the way to go.
That's got to be the right way. They can burn you and turn you into diamonds now.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Or plant you into those tree pod things.
Yeah.
And put you in the bottom and a tree sprouts that uses you as the nutrients.
Yeah.
That just seems natural. Right, Mr. Ben?
So, okay, so I was reading the blurb on Spotify, and even the way that you got into it is pretty interesting. You were like house sitting, you were doing music, and then you were house sitting, and then you got in touch with Max Martin, who also is so funny. I was like, I Googled Max Martin. I'm like, what's he looking like? What's he up to?
Very similar.
You guys look very similar, yeah.
The funny thing was, back in the day, like, I used to get so much heat for having a beard. Like, when the project was really taking off, I remember going in and they're like, Jesus, man, you look so old. Why are you wearing a beard? And it's like, because I don't like to shave. And it's funny that he started growing a beard at some point in time. It was like, you got to, stay clean and coiffed and have the hat. But yeah, his buddy, Alexander Cronlin, had a house down here off of Las Palmas and Fountain. And I was moving out of my place. Alex was going to Sweden. And I asked if I could stay. He had an extra little like a little guest house in his backyard. And the thing was, it wasn't really, it sounds glamorous.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Like, that part of Fountain and Formosa Fountain and Las Palmas was really, I was telling my son the other day, I was like, I saw one of the craziest street fights in my life out here one afternoon coming home from work where the store owner of this little red store that's there, he came out swinging on some kids. And one kid came up and punched another guy in the back of his head, started this whole melee of like a bunch of like high school kids versus a bunch of kids who lived in the neighborhood. It was full on like just a WWF like fighting.
Yeah.
I just kept waiting for somebody to pull out a gun, but the neighborhood wasn't necessarily the best. But Alex had his place there and he let me stay, and he had a little recording studio there. And I started working on music. But I already had like a publishing or a record deal with another like indie record label, but they just weren't really, they didn't know what to do with the music that I had. And so that stuff never took off before then. But with Alex and Max and everybody who was there was a band there that kind of would pop through occasionally called Teddy Bears. And I love their stuff. They had like this super cool Swedish, like they worked with Robin a lot. They're just cool, like the Hives and all these, like my favorite Swedish bands, the Cardigans, all like, I was already into the Swedish culture a little bit, and those dudes were coming through Alex's place. So I got to just kind of be a fly on the wall, and that's really where it came from. Like, and my first trip out of the country was because Alex had invited all of us to go meet Martin at Four Seasons. He had just finished some season of American Idol. I can't remember which one it was. He was writing songs for either the winner or the guy who came runner-up.
Yeah.
The show was over. The songs were out. And they invited us to go down and just kind of drink the rest of the night away. And we got down there, and Martin, everybody was telling me to go see A Swedish Summer. And I just didn't have cash to go and do like one of those cool European trips.
Because this is all before the album came out.
Way before, yeah. It was still paycheck to paycheck then. And Martin was like, yeah, dude, don't buy your ticket. Just come. Just get over there. And I was like, yeah, that's an LA thing for anybody, some rich dude like that to say he's going to buy a ticket. And sure enough, he gave me a phone number. I called, and the travel agent the next morning was like, yeah, he's expecting you to join everybody for this World Cup like kind of playoff thing. He's like, yeah, I'm going to hire a chef, and we're going to like watch World Cup every afternoon and go like out to the river or out to some lake. And I was like, that sounds real nice, man.
That's the best feeling, is when you haven't made it at all, but you want to. And then all of a sudden you're around these people who are successful, and you get to kind of take a peek
at
into
what
that.
Their lives are.
Yeah. And you're just like, this is so cool because there's no pressure on me. I don't have to do anything. I just get to show up and like observe.
And they know you don't have it. Yeah. They know you don't have it to like really contribute on the level that they're contributing on. As long as you just kind of clean up after yourself and stay cool. Yeah. Just don't drink too much and make an ass out of yourself.
I feel like that's so much like like anyone who's trying to be in some sort of entertainment or probably any career. It's like, just be a decent person.
Just be decent.
And enjoy whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that be in that moment. It'll keep you going.
Yeah.
It'll keep going. I remember like being there, and like the first album I bought when I moved to LA in like 96 was the Cardigans record. And the guitar player, Peter, just shows up at Martin's house, and it's just like, oh my God, I've been like this. That was a goal of mine, was to work with him. Like there were two guys, there was another guitar player, and I wanted to work with Peter. And it was like, if I could ever get to just write and work with those dudes, that would be a dream come true. And then here comes Peter with like, he had just done a Cardigan show in Italy. He's like, I brought all this sausage and some wine and some beans from Italy. I'm going to cook everything. And it's epic meal. Like one of those things you're like, this is not my life right now. This doesn't make any sense.
So then after that, is that like, did they end up helping you with the first album?
Yeah, they helped immediately. Like what happened was on the plane trip to Sweden, I bought a notebook in the airport, and I just started writing down some notes, some lyrics. And the first line in that book is, I'm coming to terms, I'm starting to learn this ain't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And then got back from that trip, and my neighbor, another Swedish guy, Tobias Karlsson, he was really into Keen at the time. And he had just been on some writing trip in England with some boy band that he was writing for, and he was just sick of it. And he was playing these chords at the piano. He's like, can we just, like, let's just write something that's just a song, man. Yeah. And he just started playing. I was like, I know exactly what this is. And I grabbed my notebook and sang it down over that. And we sent that song to Martin.
How rare is that?
Dude, it's so rare. It's like you see that stuff in movies and it's like, it's not how it happens. But yeah, for me, it really was.
Yeah.
It's like, same thing with Show Me What I'm Looking For. We wrote it in literally, it's a 15-minute song.
Yeah.
It came together just like that.
But I feel like that's when the best stuff happens, is when you're not overthinking something.
It is, when you're natural.
Especially, I'm sure you feel this way when you're writing. How many times do you like look at your writing and you're like, that's corny?
Yeah.
Like, why did I even think of that? How does that even work in a...
But if you do it naturally, especially if you do it live, those moments when you catch, like, it's almost like you're playing jazz.
Yeah.
When you catch that wave and you're just like, if you just keep pushing a little further in that direction, it's going to open. And it's an instinct that happens.
It's the same with comedy when you're like doing a show, and it really depends on the audience.
The audience timing with you. Like, you get a singularity thing with your audience, right?
Because there's moments where you just feel so safe. You're like, I could say anything and it'll work.
It'll work.
And those are when I come up with the best like tags to jokes or the best lines.
Yeah,
because you just feel that freedom, and you're like, in that moment, you're like, I'm a rock star.
Yeah,
anything
that's totally
I say
what it
will
is.
work.
Because you've kind of collectively, you guys have all formed the same sort of like hive mind consciousness.
Yeah,
and you're in this space where it's safe and it's open, and you've got all these people who are encouraging you to like make us laugh. Like, we want this from you, and we know that you can deliver what we need right this moment.
How does that work though with music? Because I feel there's parts of me that are envious of music, because I'm like, they get to do the same songs that they know work every single
same
time.
Gimmicks work.
People want it.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for. Where with comedy, if I go to typically the same city every like 9 months to a year or something, and they're expecting probably something new.
Yeah, it has to be.
I did a show this past weekend, and the guy in the audience was like, why don't you do that one joke that I saw on YouTube? And I was like,
do you want that show?
I wish I had known, because I would have loved to just go back to that old material and not had to
like suffer through some new stuff and try to find the timing on it. I mean, it's for music, it's a gift to be able to know like this is going to work, but sometimes it doesn't. You know, you get those audiences that are just, there's this.
Yeah.
Like they're
and you're like, no, this is the go-to. This is what always works. Yeah.
Some nights it won't. But I mean, that's gotta be so hard. How often do you have to write? How current do you have to stay?
I mean, you have to, I don't know. I'm still I know what the right answer is. The right answer is you gotta write every day.
Is it?
You gotta write every day and whatever. But I just, I'll start writing, and then I'm like, this feels like the saddest journal ever. This feels like a suicide note where I'm just like, dear diary. But sometimes I'll just be inspired, and sometimes the thought will come to me, and I'm like, or I'm telling a story to someone, and there's a funny line in the story, and I didn't think it was funny, but someone's laughing. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to that. But
that's got to be hard though, because it's like your thing to be on. Like for me, if I don't take a guitar with me, then I'm okay. Yeah. I don't have to be like, tell me a joke or sing me a song. It's like, but for you guys, that's a different animal altogether. We were talking about it the other day, like the amount of, you're dealing in happiness. And so like, you're so happy and you're high on being happy. And then when that's gone, that dopamine being away from you comedians is dangerous.
Totally. That's why there's some comedians who naturally are just always on. They're naturally just always funny. Yeah. That's never been my story. I'm naturally very like pessimistic and serious. Like I take everything very seriously. And so that's why it's nice when I'm on stage. It's like I get to be this version of myself that I am, but I don't always show in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's probably safer.
Yeah,
because if you were like that all the time, like you don't have enough energy to supply that. You're going to become something awful.
Yeah, so then, okay. So then I want to know what happened. Okay, so you do the first album right away. Is it a hit, or does it take a little bit of time?
Pretty much. I mean, it still took time to like get the touring part of it down, to really get the band to turn into a real band. That took about 6 months.
Because those were all the Swedish dudes, so it was like fairly new.
Yeah, it was all new.
You'd never like toured with those guys before.
Never. No, that was all brand new, because I had other bands, and it was always me just putting the bands together. And in this place, I was in Sweden working on the record, so it just made sense. Like, let's just get guys that are local here and see if we vibe. And it worked. I mean, they were such good players. Everybody came together pretty fast in that way, but to really for that music to work live, it had to become a band. Yeah. It wasn't one of those like, because I'm so bad at like playing the same performance every night. I couldn't do it anyway. Like just coming from that kind of blues background we were talking about the other day, Where it's like, well, I'm going to make this verse. We're going to hold this thing out now.
Yeah.
Like the audience is not with us right now. So keep the kick drum going. I forgot the lyrics. Let me just keep that thing running for a minute.
Yeah.
We're just gonna
Yeah. Like, it'll come back to me.
It'll come, and it's teaching a band to think that way, like...
Yeah, because you all have to kind of be on the same page, and it's almost like I feel like when a band is together long enough, you get like this weird ESP of like knowing where everyone's at.
Yeah, they study that with jazz, like great jazz musicians are like, how does that work? Because there is like real ESP. Like, how would you know that everybody's going to go to this like weird diminished or some sort of out of nowhere, everybody's going to go to the one and then rest.
Yeah.
And somehow they know it's a hive mind or a swarm mind type thing, and it can happen.
Yeah.
And maybe like little micro reactions that you see. I don't know. But
how long had you been doing music until this album came out and the success of it?
That would have been 10 years because I moved here. I was 20 when I moved to LA, and I got my first record deal when I was 30.
Yeah.
And so I'd been playing coffee shops and just trying to make a living out of it. And I worked for another songwriter. I worked for this writer, Diane Warren, when I first moved out here.
That sounds so familiar.
She wrote I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. And she wrote like all these great 80s songs, all the Michael Bolton and Celine Dion songs. What's the other one? Unbreak My Heart.
Oh.
I was there for that one. I was there for when she wrote Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Wow.
It was my job at the time because we were still using cassette tapes to pitch songs. So she would come out of her writing room and give me the tape of whenever a song was done. I'd have to make the duplicates.
Hot off the press.
Yeah, straight off the press. It's like, here's the new lyrics, here's the song, here's the like her recording, not the demo of like when she gave it to her producers. Like, here it is, here's one of the first listens. And then I would send it to the copyright guys and do all the like the paperwork behind it.
Yeah.
It was cool. That was a really cool gig.
Is there the same thing in music where they say like, oh, don't expect anything for 10 years?
Yeah, I guess it's really what it is. It's like a 10,000 hours type thing. It has to be.
Yeah.
And then still, like you get into it and it's still a new thing.
Totally.
Like it's a brand, like you got to learn to play on a stage with no monitors and you're listening in your ears and you can't feel the audience.
Yeah.
The rooms get bigger and then the rooms get really small the next night.
And there's nothing to prepare you for that except for just doing it.
That's it. There's no way to do it. And you're on camera and you're having to learn how to sing in pitch and key, like for real, all the time. You can't just shop it in because you're just too whiskey drunk.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You got to get like really like with the way that they had us touring with Atlantic. I mean, Atlantic worked that record so hard. It was fun. Now I can look at it, but the time was exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really work out that much. I wasn't really like a health guy, but it was the only thing that could keep you alive.
I know. I just went on tour with St. Vincent.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
how cool.
It was awesome.
Dude, she's local, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been obsessed with music, and you know, I think there's this thing where musicians want to be comics want to be musicians.
Totally.
And so before I started doing comedy, I was like, there's one of two roads. I know I want to do entertainment, so it's either going to be music or comedy. Music seemed really difficult. I was like, comedy seems easy. It's not, but I was like, that'll be the easy route. I'm always looking for a shortcut. Not at all. Not at all. But ever since doing comedy, I'm like, I want to tour like a musician. Because they just go on a long stretch and you have this big group of people around you. And with comedy, it's family. Just you back and forth every weekend alone.
Sad.
It's so
really
sad.
Get sad and dark.
So I got to do that and I got to, be the fly on the wall.
Were you opening for her?
I was opening, yes. I was doing comedy, opening her shows.
They used to do that. That was kind of a standard thing, right? There would be a comedian and then the band would come out. Like, that was so smart.
Yeah.
Just to keep that thing in between bands. Like, somebody would come out.
Because it's also like when you're the opener, when you're the band who's the opener, they're not there to see you.
No,
every once in a while, you'll be like, oh, they're good. But oftentimes you're like, I don't want any more music.
You don't even want to be bothered with it.
Yeah. You know? So it was fun to do. It was different. It was interesting.
Man, what a cool artist to go out with.
Yeah.
An innovator.
But there's so many, in your head, you're like, oh, there's probably going to be so much drugs and craziness. And I'm sure when you're beginning, there is. I've heard the stories, but
it can be.
When you're a seasoned pro, everyone's like doing yoga.
Oh, yeah.
They're meditating in their bunk and they're all working out during the day.
Trying to stay sane.
Meanwhile, I'm just eating hot Cheetos in my tiny little coffin bunk. Like, everyone good?
Anybody want to listen to some music, dance in the front of the bus?
Yeah, I'm just like aggressively vaping. Everyone's like, we don't do smoke around here. I'm like, okay.
No, I remember my ex-wife because she had dated some like proper rock people before, but she never really like dealt with being out with them.
Yeah.
And she had in her mind that was just like basically women just literally like the hottest models throwing themselves at us all the time. These are just beautiful exotic creatures that would come out of the woodworks. And then she went to 2 shows, like some stuff we did on the West Coast here. And we used to do like meet and greets and like these like VIP things that they would part as what of this tour package. And she saw us, she's like, what is wrong with you guys? And it's like, oh, we got to go do the meet and greet. And it's like, it's not bad. But she's like, we were covering ourselves in antiseptic, putting like stuff on our nose and faces and ears and everything. Because sometimes people would lick you. Like that would be like some ladies would just like come out of nowhere and just lick you.
Yeah.
And not that it's kind of okay, but you're still like dodging kisses from people and it gets gropey. And you do it for 6 or 7 months in a row. You're like, okay, it was kind of cool in the beginning, but then it's like, oh. It's a lot. And she finally saw it. She was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like that's real hard work. I was like, yeah. And everybody, like we all want to meet and hang out, but yeah, it ain't necessarily like at least for rock and roll. I have seen some DJ guys, like some DJ sets where it has been that thing of like, where are all these beautiful people coming from? Oh my God.
DJs have it good.
They have it really good. Like they don't have to play until like midnight. They don't have to set anything up. They're not carrying anything. And they're just like.
They got it good. They just show up. Everything's taken care of.
Yeah, dude, it's so nice.
Yeah.
Totally pulled the wrong card.
And I feel like when you're a musician, not that DJs aren't musicians, but when you're like a performing band traveling, the people coming out to the show, I feel like when you're a DJ, you're going to nightclubs, everyone's like dressed all hot and sexy. But when you're a musician traveling with a band, these people who are coming out, they feel such a deep connection to you because the music has gotten them through a divorce, a breakup, death. Like, so there's such that reaction, but then it does become invasive at a certain point where you're like, I know that you know me and I appreciate that you know me and that you feel this way, but I don't know you.
We don't know each other yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a good old fashioned licking is kind of, it's a lot.
It's too much. It's too much. So then we got to get to the gritty stuff.
Oh yeah, like where the whole thing fell apart.
Oh yeah.
What happened was, the second record didn't work. Like it just totally bombed, and out of that, I came back home. The band, the guys who were my
Did you have a feeling that might happen, or was there part of you that was blinded by the Hollywood lights, being like, "Oh, this will..."
Totally blinded, completely blinded, because everybody behind. Because we left Atlantic Records. Atlantic didn't drop us. They were like everybody in the party that worked. We were like, look, they don't like the music that we've made for this record. They'll let us leave and still put the record out ourselves. And we're like, yeah, we got all these people that'll be there, and we can do this. And it's like, no, we're putting out a pop record. Like, you have to have major label money to do that. It costs so much money. Oh my God.
When you have that moment of success and these people are all hyping you up, there's nothing in your eyes, I imagine, that could go wrong. Because everyone's like, you're the best.
No, yeah. You got all the support that you could possibly ever need. And then when it starts failing, they're like, no, I don't want to stay out and drink with you. I got other things to do. You're like, wait, what? We're kind of family friends, right? And they're like, well... You were at my baby shower, and it was like, oh my God, that's real. Like, like everybody's totally ducking out. Like, and that's what started happening. Yeah. Everything around the project started like, and rightfully so. There was no survival for anybody in it, including myself. Yeah. And I couldn't see it at the time, but everybody was running for the hills or making new things. So the manager left, the band left. So I had to put a new group of guys together, which came in and carried it, but it wasn't the same. Yeah. So all that started going away, and then the gigs started disappearing, and those were real good money. That started disappearing. My relationship with my wife at the time was falling apart. We just had a baby. Yeah. So the top of putting a baby on top of all of that and everybody departing was just a cacophony of failure. Yeah. One thing going bad after another, after another. And then I thought was going to be a good thing. I got a publishing deal with Warner Chappell. And then I couldn't land songs with other artists. Like, was writing every day to make something happen, and none of that stuff connected.
And what kind of artists were you trying to work with at that time?
Basically anybody. Like I was just pitching, like for anybody that was looking for songs. I wasn't working directly with anybody. I was working more so with some of the other writers. They had to help the other writers develop their writing skills.
Yeah.
And that's what it turned into. And then wife lost all faith in me being able to be a provider. She like left the house, took the kid, and had to move in and take care of herself in another way. But she's done well for herself. But that fell apart, and I just couldn't mentally get it together. There was nothing I could do. Like I started selling carpet for Empire Carpet.
Whoa.
I tried that, and it wouldn't work because I needed to be available for my kid to be able to help for daycare and other things. And so...
And I'm sure your songwriting process changes when you start losing everything, because then it just reeks of desperation. Yeah, all your songs are
desperate.
All your songs are probably
desperate.
Like these falsehoods of like, everything's really
great.
Good.
Drink and party.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is crap. And, and it all failed. Like there was nothing that couldn't fail. The car got repossessed, lost my house. Friends were helped. There were people that were trying to help. They really did. But it was just, I remember I had a storage facility, and going into the storage facility, just finding things to sell and staring at all the stuff that was in my house, like what my life was, and watching this thing get smaller and smaller. And some days just being in this thing and just being like, I don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I couldn't leave because my kid, I have a family in South Carolina, and they would have taken me home anytime.
Yeah.
But I have my son here. So it was never one of those things where I was like, no, I'm not. He's too young.
Well, and I'm sure there's still part of you that has this dream that you want to keep going.
Yeah.
So you're like, I can't go to South Carolina because that means I've fully given up.
Yeah, totally. I quit, and then I quit for him. It was like, the only thing I knew to like keep up kind of what he knew and possibly put a family back together is to get back on this bus to try and Rocky this thing out.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. We even had like, the crazy thing was, in that time, as this is falling apart, I started this other band called Federal Empire, and it started getting some real kind of respect.
Yeah.
There was the Scooter Braun, like Justin Bieber's manager. He brought us in to his place, but still with all of my like mental problems that were coming up, even in that, when that thing was starting to catch, it fell apart. And that band completely just kept falling apart. We got some help from Lindsey Sterling. She took us on the road with her. Lots of good things, and it would just not connect. There was just some problem somewhere, and it just ended up one day being like, okay, I got a Postmates will work. Yeah. I'll do that. That works, and then I'm still free enough to like be with my kid on the weekends, or like if something comes up and I need to go jump on a tour, I can do that. Yeah. That'll work. So I was delivering food and stuff here, and then something happened. I can't remember exactly how or where. I was trying to do some demos of some songs, so I wasn't Postmating enough. And in that time, I missed a few payments on my car, and the thing got repossessed when I was staying at some hotel, because the hotel sold the manifest of the license plates every night. Yeah. And they yanked my car out and towards Ventura somewhere. And at that time was like, okay, what am I going to do? I've got $500 to my name. And so I went and got an Uber, and I went straight to Hertz and rented another car, started Postmating immediately, just hustling everything.
What year is this?
That was 2016, I think, if I remember right. Yeah, so it was just 6 years ago.
That's not that long ago, yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not in any way, shape, or form, and just kept like hustling this thing out until eventually I got my job over at the School of Rock over in Burbank. Yeah. And that was just one thing that was stable, because they've been really good about like, you can come in, and if you got to take a tour, there's plenty of other teachers who need the work. And everybody's like teaching and going on the road, and then you come back and teach, and you pick up, and it's all kind of the same methodology of teaching. So everybody can pick up everybody's kind of the scale level where everybody's teaching.
And if all the teachers there are, musicians, they get it.
They get it.
Everyone wants to be doing something, so if they're not, they're happy to help.
They're happy to help. Everybody will carry it. Everybody can play the parts that are there for the kids, and it just, that little bit of stability changed everything. And after that came in, I got another deal, a quick deal with Sumerian Records, like a metal label for Federal Empire, and they started working that. And then like 2 years after that deal started, we did some shows with Cage the Elephant, Angels and Airwaves, like some real proper cool rock shows. Yeah. And then fucking COVID came. Yeah. And totally dipped out on that one. So it was like that, whatever that was, all these like stuff around that was just one chaos after another. But then on the other side, there's David, who's got this massive audience of people who the song just kept going through. Because I wasn't getting real like ASCAP money anymore. And then I started seeing the money like it. Like,
do you get, when David uses your song in videos, is there like royalties?
Yeah,
for that?
I get some sound exchange. There's sound exchange that collects on that, and there's some ASCAP money. And then it's just kind of the other things that kind of bounce off of that, other clips on YouTube or other TV shows.
Well, and he's so popular that people see that in his videos and they go, my videos will be very popular if I use this song too.
Exactly, because he's taught everybody how to use the emotion in the song. Like he like gave that song a purpose of like, it's like the perfect energy montage song. It is. It's totally cool. Like Jesus, there's 14,000 people who have made a video of that thing, or at least on TikTok. Yeah. And of that 14,000, there's like some of those things have millions and millions of plays. It's astronomical the amount of plays that song has gotten because of him.
I asked, when Ari said that you were going on his podcast, he was like, should I ask him anything? And I don't know if he asked you this question, but I was dying to know. When you seemingly like lost it all, when you're like at this, place where you're like, well, fuck, it's all
this is it.
Ended.
It's definitely over.
Was there something a little bit freeing about that?
Yeah, there is some cathartic kind of like a breath in there, there is.
Because you have to work so hard in order to make your dream happen, and you had that happen. Yeah. You got to do the touring, you had a very successful album, like all of this stuff is great. Yeah. But then with that, because like with comedy for me, I'm just at the beginning of my career, and even with all these cool things that come my way, it's stressful. Like it's scary, and it's so much more work than you would think. You're like, no, I'm just funny, and that's it.
This is just natural and it's easy.
But there's so much that when I heard your story, I was like, he got out of it. There's got to be some relief. You're like, I don't have to do a fucking thing.
There was great. It's like just being able to know that there's teaching there, and like this is nice. Like there's kids coming by. There's people that I can help like put together a goal that they've always wanted to have. Like just to be able to sing at like a karaoke thing. They didn't have the nerve to do it before. Yeah, and that was great. Like it's been like. Yeah. The only problem with it is it's LA, so you don't have quite enough money to live. Like if it were like a smaller place, that's the only thing that's honestly the only thing that was missing out of that. The solace of that was
just the stress of
surviving LA. Yeah. Just the price to be here. Yeah. But man, whenever my son gets old enough and I can dip out of town and just teach and occasionally do a show, dude, it's a gift.
Well, because that's also the thing. You get to reevaluate what's really important. Like you got all the cool things, you got the cash and prizes, and then then you got to kind of be like, well, what's really important to me? What do I actually want to do?
Yeah, what does it matter?
And God, the video, the David Dobrik fucking clip. He showed it to me. He's like, you got to watch it. I'm like, just sobbing. I'm like, this is so beautiful.
It was so hard whenever that thing hit. Like it was. And I try my best not to be too emotional. Like I always like hold everything back. And then it was like,
the life of an artist.
Oh my God. And then it just hit me like a weight. There's so much footage that they had to pull away from because I was just, it's like, I had no, and I have to show you guys a clip of what my kids what they were doing this Saturday. And like, literally it was like, once that little van pulled up and like it got settled in and all the kids showed up, they all went running across the beach. And they're all running into this van. They basically had a rave inside that VW van. They were just jamming so hard. It was amazing. And even with that, like I sent that clip back to all the guys through David's camp. Like, look, dude, you're that one moment, like you taking that time, like it's changed all of these kids' life. That ripple effect is so big. Yeah. What you've done, like to do, like just casually using song like that, when somebody has that kind of influence over society and chooses to do good rather than be so, I mean, there's going to be a point where there is self-serving in there, but on the other side, just to do 5% of good things on that level is enormous for people.
There's this guy who makes TikTok videos, and, you know, David, with any great amount of following comes great amount of, you know, feedback and criticism and whatever.
Yeah.
There's this guy on TikTok, I'm obsessed with him, and it's like he makes these videos where he, like, talks to homeless people, or just anyone. He'll be at Walmart, and the first person to do something nice for him, he gives them, like, $500 or $1,000 or something so like
rad.
that. And, you know, I'll show my boyfriend, I'm like, look at how sweet this is. And he's like, why is he filming it? You know, whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, because you don't know who that video is going to inspire.
You don't get it.
Sure, like there's part of it where you're like, that's kind of gross, and you're putting these people on blast and whatever. But I watch that, and I'm like, oh, I could do...
You could do that.
I don't have $500 to just throw at someone, but, like, just a small act of kindness.
Just kindness, for buying a cup of coffee.
Especially nowadays, I feel like, you know, it's so easy to feed into, like, the negativity of everything, and I feel like this is so cliche and everyone's talking about it, but, like, I have a cute story from this past weekend that I'd like to share. So there's, you know, all this negativity. I feel like, especially with COVID, everyone's become so isolated, and it's so easy to look at doom and gloom. Yeah. And so my aunt, she passed away 2 years ago, and she's one of those people who's, like, so friendly, so nice, like, loves everyone, loves everything. Like, you wouldn't catch her saying anything negative. Just the best person. And so my sister had this idea. She was like, oh, it would have been Maureen's 64th birthday on the 11th.
Wow,
so my sister,
Wow.
So my sister was like, because Maureen was so generous and kind, like, I'm going to give, you know, an amount of people, I think it was like 64 people, $20.
All right.
Which is a lot of money. I did the math. I was like, how much of this could go to my rent?
Man.
Yeah, I was a little bit. I was like, okay, chill out. Fucking
Jesus.
Elon
Money
Musk.
bags over there.
Like, did the math. I'm like, you Venmo requested me for the Verizon bill, but you're just giving these.
You're just going to give this one out?
But the point of it was, like, she mailed $20 to 64 people, which does come out to $1,280.
Yeah, that's real cash, man.
And she put a note. She was like, it would have been Maureen's 64th birthday. I want you to spend this money on doing some sort of act of kindness, and hopefully it, like, it starts a chain.
Yeah.
And so I was on the road. I was in Corpus Christi. I had $20 in my pocket, and I was on my way to get my nails done because my Aunt Maureen, she would always take me to get my nails done.
Right.
So I'm like, maybe something will just kind of, either the person doing my nails, I'll be able to give them, like, this $20 tip.
Sure.
Or there's someone at the nail salon.
Something else will show up. Yeah, the universe is going to give you something. Of
course.
Yeah, it always does.
And so I order the Uber. I'm on the way over, and the Uber driver, she's this woman. She's like, take my number. You know, if you're in town and you want me to pick you up, like, I'll just give you a ride. It's safer or whatever.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. I'm going to get my nails done. She's like, yeah, I've been trying to save money, so I haven't got my nails done in a while. And I'm like, here it is.
Here's the story.
So we pull up to the nail salon. And first of all, she's also, like, saying all this crazy. She lives in Texas, you know, she has Texas beliefs. She's a Southern woman through and through.
Texan.
And I'm like, she's talking about Russia and Biden and Trump and all this stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't care.
No.
I don't care what she believes in.
No, it doesn't matter.
She's a sweet person giving me a ride. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's also the crazy thing about now is, like, if someone has any sort of other belief, you're like, why would I help that person?
No, you can't do that, because you can't. If you do that, you stifle the conversation that could stimulate that one piece of change that could, or be a ripple effect.
Totally.
And that missing conversation that's a lost chance to make things better.
Yeah. So we got our nails done, and after we got our nails done, she took me out to lunch. She was like, I got to take you to this place. So we got lunch and whatever, and then my sister was telling me about her story, and this woman that she had helped, she didn't even end up spending the $20 on her because she had already used it on something else, but she felt like the way that she used her 20 wasn't like... She was like, it didn't feel like...
Didn't have that significance on it.
Yeah. And so she's leaving the nail salon. We both did nail salon related things.
That's cool.
As she's leaving the nail salon, this woman's walking up to her, and she's like, I locked myself out of my car.
Oh, Jesus.
And my sister's like, just kind of standing with her.
Yeah.
Like, my sister has nothing to really help her with. She's like, do you have AAA? Like, I'll wait with you.
Yeah, whatever you need.
She just offered her time, essentially, and a listening ear. And the lady texted her later that day, being like, I was in such a dark place. You know, I've been contemplating like being alive.
What?
And just like you being there with me doing that, like restored my faith.
Ooh,
I know.
what?
I'm such a sucker for things like that.
But it's, you know, like innately people are kind.
Yeah.
Like in the universe, I think, of course, there is like the matter of survival, which can be ugly. But I think if there's a choice, everybody's going to choose kindness.
Yeah.
Unless you're just like some narcissist that has to be here for the balance of it all.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think and if we can just, it's such hippie talk, but if you can get to that side, if you could flip that pendulum, so much good could be done.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of my rule for doing the shows and stuff now. Like, anytime we go anywhere, as we're booking things for Carolina Lyre, it's like, whatever we do, we got to go in each community and do something. Like, I can teach kids.
Oh, I love that.
I can do, like, whatever. There's, like, people can reach out to us directly, and we're just going in and, like, yeah, we'll do a show, but I don't need that much.
Yeah.
So we just need enough to be able to...
Yeah, you're like, trust me.
Yeah.
I've gotten,
We're good.
through the past few years with very little.
Don't need it. It's going to be okay. I mean, if we can do it, instead of doing the same old, like, we're coming to town, we're just going to take the money and then get out.
Yeah, buy all of our t-shirts, please.
Support us.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're going to give you 2 hours. It's like, no, you got to do better.
Yeah.
Because it just, of all the lucky breaks that I've had, and like somebody giving me a car like that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, come on, that's not real. Like, I've gotten record deals. I've gotten all of these things that I really didn't feel like I ever deserved. And I don't think I honestly feel like I've never given enough back.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, if this is the next part of this adventure, it has to be that.
Well, and I feel like with performing and entertainment, so much of it is so self-fulfilling.
Oh, dude.
And it's all about you.
Yeah.
And, in the beginning, that feels good. You finally feel seen.
Yeah,
you feel
you
heard.
heard.
People
You're
love
finally
you.
heard.
You feel
you can relate.
safe. But then, as you do it more and more, that feeling doesn't feel as good. And so I think that's such a great way of looking at it, is like, if you're doing those shows, you get something out of it, but then you're able to give something back. So whether it works or it doesn't work, you still are like, oh, I got to have an experience.
You're having an experience. You're doing something that has more purpose, because you know that feeling too. Like, when you're dealing with your trade, like, I think humans innately need to do things that they leave little landmarks or something where you can see physical proof of your work. But we all work in these non-existent things. Like, comedy it's not tangible.
Yeah, it's not an essential job, I found out during COVID. I'm not essential.
They didn't give you the gig workers thing?
No.
Damn.
I mean, I think there was some whatever here and there, but yeah.
Oh man, that's not fair.
Well, and you can you can trick yourself into being like, well, I gave them laughs.
Yeah.
I gave them laughs. I gave them joy for a moment.
They held it inside, but you can't physically put it in a book or any of that stuff. So I think being able to go somewhere and see some work, some physical work, maybe it's getting out and just like building something, like building sounds so stupid, but building a playground or building the sidewalk or fixing a fence, even just that alone is like just cleaning up a place.
Totally.
Just, you got to do the work.
Yeah.
I think for me, that has to be the new thing, because I'll go crazy again. I know the next time around, like, I mean, same here. I had a plan, like, this thing isn't working out. It's like, what's the easiest way for me to get rid of myself so my family and nobody has to like deal with whatever's left over? Like, and I was like, okay, how do I manage that? And that's it's a proper evil thing that you got to fight off.
Totally.
And it's like, man, why am I like, what is that voice? Like, I don't want to hear that thing, but you do. And somehow, I don't know how you survive it, but it's definitely there. Mental illness is a real thing. And I think, we were talking about the homelessness thing, like, what could we do, joking, but honestly, if all the money we have in this country, if we could just spend a little bit for free mental health care, just like allow college kids who are studying this in school to like, okay, you're going to have to work for free. And this is where you're going to get some like learning how to deal with your patients.
Yeah.
You got to go volunteer down here, and you're just going to spend an hour. This is it. These are the hours you have to give, and then we'll compensate you with credits at your school, especially if it's a state-funded school. It doesn't seem too complicated.
Yeah, because I feel like I realized, like, especially with my sister having that experience with that woman, it's like so many people just want to be seen. They want to be heard. you know? And so it's like these small little acts of like just kindness. And I feel like it's so corny.
It does sound corny. I mean, we like those. That's really good material to make fun of.
Yeah,
you know,
it's so embarrassing to be like, just be kind.
It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
You're disgusting. But it's true.
Yeah,
because
really especially now it's so easy to just like see just someone and just be on your phone. There's no need to say something.
No, you don't have to interact at all.
It's uncomfortable to have to make eye contact with someone and say something. I went to a Super Bowl party yesterday and there were new people and I didn't want to talk to any of them. Yeah. But I'm like, I can just say hi and make eye contact. And if they want to talk, the opportunity
and as soon as that's locked out, then it's like the fun starts to happen. Yeah. It's like, oh man, interaction is cool. Yeah. It helps.
Yeah. And it validates your place on this earth by just, even with a stranger, making eye contact, talking to them. You're like, oh, I
part
exist.
Of this thing. Yeah, this existence is real.
I used to, there was one time I was in downtown LA and I was fiending for a cigarette so bad. And I didn't have one. And I see this homeless man on the street and he's smoking. And I'm like, hey, do you happen to have a cigarette by chance?
Right.
And I told my friend and they're like, you would take something from a homeless person? I'm like, when's the last time you had a conversation with someone who was homeless?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I smoked that cigarette with him and we were having a good time. Yeah, and he probably felt good. I mean, I don't want to project and assume how he felt, but I imagine
but it was like a moment of normality.
Yeah.
It's like that thing of feeling normal for a minute can be everything.
Yeah.
It really can. I've gotten some, man, being in Hollywood, I've had so many fantastic moments with certifiably, you know, maybe crazy-ish people. I remember one time...
We don't have a shortage of them.
Oh, man. There's some real classic characters out here. But I've learned so much from people like that. And then one was really almost frightening how well she knew me. Like, this lady came up, and she seemed like this elderly lady that I kind of knew somewhere from at some point in time. And she was like, oh, yeah, when you grew up in Charleston, it was this. And I was like... yeah, of course. When I grew up in Charleston, she started singing the song from some grocery store chain down there. I was like, yeah, you knew it. And then she starts talking about chanting, and she gives me this card that's got Nam Renge Chao, like the Buddhist chant, and it's on a piece of paper. And then I look down, and she's not wearing any shoes. Her pants, she's full homeless person. Yeah. And then she's kind of like all wily and weird. But in that moment, she was totally not that. Like, we had something, and she communicated on a level that was very transparent and connected to me. And it was like, okay, this is some real David Lynchy kind of thing right this moment. But I'll roll with it.
Have you seen the Goat Man in Hollywood?
No, who's the Goat Man?
The guy with the goat?
No.
Yeah,
where's he?
We were talking before the podcast started.
Oh yeah?
He's everywhere.
That's cool.
But we were talking before the podcast started. My boyfriend used to busk on Hollywood Boulevard, and he was just
the Goat Man.
Well, no. So we were doing laundry at a laundromat, and it's like late at night. It's like 11 p.m. And all of a sudden, outside there's a large goat. Very large, like the biggest goat I've ever seen in my life. And this guy, we go outside, I have to see the goat, and we're talking to this guy, and he just goes around Hollywood with the goat and whatever. And
does he clean land up for people?
No, he's like just a crust punk with a goat.
Wow.
Yeah,
they just kick it and get drunk.
Dude. But it was so funny because I saw this look in my boyfriend's eyes of like longing. He was like, oh,
the goat.
That looks so like just being on the street, which is why I was like, there must be some sort of, you know, freedom in losing it. And
it's free knowing that you only have so much. Like, yeah, this is all it is. Yeah. This is okay. And then whenever some money comes through, it's like, oh, I can really appreciate this again. Like, this is going to help. Yeah. I can make this last. And, like, just look at things in such a different way. But that thing of, the scary thing about it is, like, once you've tasted that kind of freedom, it's real hard to come back. And to kind of, like, and to take people serious. It's like, you're selling this is a bullshit plan that you got going over there. I'll be fine without it. You don't, like, your attitude is bad.
Yeah.
I don't need to deal with you. I'll be fine. And that necessarily may not be the best thing. You know, because you just, like, you need to somewhat acclimate to society. But then there's a part where you're just like, yeah, I could live without all of this.
Yeah.
Easy.
Do you have anything coming up now, or have you gotten busy?
We're gonna release a new version of Show Me What I'm Looking For.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, we got like permission from Atlantic. They're gonna help us out. Like, we get to own the master of the thing, so we're doing that.
That makes me so happy.
Me too, man. I can't wait for it. We just I think today we get the deal memo from the people who are gonna help us distribute it.
Wow.
And we're gonna go out and I got some shows coming up. One friend is another crazy adventure story. She is bringing us all to Hawaii, and we're going to play for her son's graduation, and then we're going to do like a beach cleanup over there.
Nice.
And yeah, so we're really like, this thing is starting to go into gear in the right way. Like, it's coming.
Yeah,
I can see it.
That's so great.
Like, we're just going to will it into being existence. That's it. It's like, this is what we're going to do.
Is Instagram the best place for people to keep up and follow?
Instagram and TikTok. The TikTok thing is actually working. I'm surprised with that.
I'll make a dance. I'll make a dance to your song.
I'll get some new
viral.
ones. Show me what I'm looking for.
The EDM remix. It'll be sick.
Dude, we had one. I can't remember who the gentleman was that did the mix, but that was, those sounds have changed.
Yeah.
So we definitely need a remix for sure. You remix? No.
I have zero EDM skill.
Yeah, it's a real thing, isn't it? It's hard.
I don't have the brain for it.
That side chaining and all this stuff, like because it's a lot of processing to get that thing that loud.
I thought it was lame until I tried doing it. You know what I mean?
I do.
I was like, this is stupid.
This is dumb.
Doing it, I'm like, oh, these guys are way smarter than me.
Yeah, they're geniuses at it. They have a real skill set.
It's not taught.
Mm-mm.
You have to do that.
Yeah, you got to create your own thing.
Way to use music.
Well, they use computers as an instrument.
Yeah,
that's the magic. Like,
And it's funny because that's what everyone shits on them for. They're like, they just bring their laptops up
no,
there.
that's
like,
yeah, but that's
I tried it, and I was like, oh.
no, they're using that thing like a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden they're like playing chords and stuff.
Like, guitar's easy.
Yeah,
You learn the chords, you can make something happen.
you're good.
A computer?
No, you got different elements. It's incredible. I mean, the kids, my son, he's like editing stuff and making movies and making his own music and beats
Aw.
just with like the touch pads on, and it sounds great. It's like, dude, how'd you come up with that? That's really good. I'm jealous. It's not fair.
Yeah.
Like, you're a jerk.
We got to wrap this up, but I have one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
So how old's your son?
10.
Okay, so did the David Dobrik thing give him so much street cred?
He's got some cred now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was laughing so hard Saturday night. We came back from the beach. He's like, Dad, that was really cool, man. Like, that might make things a little different for me at school because everybody was in the van just like dancing with us. And
Now
I was
he
like,
has to deal with the fame.
Yeah,
the fame
totally.
at school, all the David Dobrik clout.
Yeah,
You're going to have to
right.
teach him. You're going to have to say, hey, man,
You're just going to have to back it off. Wear some
Yeah.
sunglasses and just keep your hood up.
Yeah.
Nobody will bother you.
thank you so much for
Dude,
coming
thanks
on the
for having
podcast.
me, dude. This was
I
rad,
was
Allie.
binge listening to your music. You can ask Mo. I keep being
on.
like, Alexa, play Carolina Liar. Show me what I'm looking for. Full volume.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
And then it was so funny because when I saw you on the street, I had to like quickly turn the radio down because I was like, I don't want to get caught listening to your music.
Oh, isn't that
right
the worst?
before.
I remember being like going into somebody's session, like a writing session with somebody I wanted to work with, and I was listening to their music, and they saw me, and I was really kind of feeling it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, I just totally lost my cool.
Yeah.
I got no currency going
Yeah.
into this thing at all.
Thanks so much for coming
Thanks,
on.
Allie. This
What's
was
your
rad.
Instagram handle?
The Carolina Liar.
Great. Follow them.
Yeah, please try.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of weird content on there. I don't know what I'm doing.
I know. It's just do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Too many people are like, they'll ask me because I'm younger. They're like, "What's the formula?" And I'm like, "There's no. Just be yourself. There's no. What are you talking about?"
No, it's like, how do you run analytics on this thing?
Yeah.
It's like you don't. That's
Yeah.
what makes it so cool. Is like it's finally something that's out of the hands of all these corporate people
Yeah.
who are like, no, we're just going to treat it with money. It's like money is not going to make this thing
Not
work.
always.
No, it's fine.
All right, that's it. That's the episode. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
doing
having
it.
me, dude.